spewing lies about January 6th. Lies. They were violent animals. A police officer died. Yeah, a police officer died. When you get a lot of people together, people sometimes die from natural causes after you lied about what they died from. You know who didn't die from natural causes? Ashley Babbitt. You know who didn't die from natural causes? Roseanne Boyland. They died from, one got summarily executed by a police officer, shot point blank, and then they claimed he's the hero. And the other one allegedly got beaten and stomped, trampled to death. And they tried to pass her death off as a methamphetamine overdose, not being able to distinguish between amphetamine, methamphetamine, and then there's a prescription drug that she was on, because there was an article that came out in the Epoch Times that said she was on one of those ADHD medications, and it has something that ends in amphetamine. It's not a methamphetamine, but they can easily be confused, to pass her death off at the hands of police officers as a drug overdose, medical emergency. And people believe these lies. I'm not going to rail on someone any harder than I did today on Twitter. I think lessons have been learned. I am, however, going to put on blast the degree to which we have been lied to. Hold on. I wanted to start with this, but it's a silent video. It wouldn't have made much sense if I didn't explain what was going on. This is, from what I understand, relatively newly released footage. I know that I've never seen it as relates to January 6th. Remember that insurrection? The insurrection where they stayed within the velvet rope in most places. There was some violence there, but there's a big difference between a protest turned a little violent, less violence than some hockey riots that I've been to. There's a difference between a protest that gets violent and an insurrection. I'll show you what an insurrection does not look like. And for those who are listening on podcast format, I'll tell you what we're looking at right now. Here's a screen grab that says Lectern theft suspect faces charges. And we're watching a video of the alleged Lectern theft. Now, if you're watching the video, look in the back. There's a guy walking in carrying a Lectern. Turns around with the Lectern. So he's taking pictures now. People are taking pictures of him as he carries a Lectern from the entrance of the rotunda. I think that's what this is. And he walks into the center of the rotunda. Now he's talking to somebody. That's the Lectern guy, by the way. That's Adam Johnson right there. This is the theft. And he places the Lectern directly. He might have overshot the center a little bit. That annoys my OCD. But he places the Lectern in the middle of the rotunda, poses for a photograph. American flags behind him. This is an insurrection, by the way. There's a guy carrying a Trump flag, staying within the velvet rope. Nobody's throwing anything at the paintings. Nobody's desecrating, defecating. Lectern guy takes a picture. Turns around, does something with his phone, takes some more pictures, talks to a dude. People are walking through with flags on weapons, as some people would say, because as I discovered in my interview with Jason Palmer, some people are under the impression that when they refer to weapons, and I'm putting it in quotes, on January 6th, they were including flagpoles. There was a pocket knife that was found there in a medical emergency kit. They were including as the weapons to commit insurrection. Whoever had a baseball bat, who was it? It was Jake Lang. Yeah, the baseball bat, so that's an insurrectionary weapon right there. Then we have the guy, Adam Johnson, Lectern guy, takes a few pictures, and he's walking off, and he leaves the Lectern in the middle of the rotunda. That's it, people. And then there's some people who don't believe that he was charged with theft. That has been swiftly righted. It was in the charging documents. Theft of government property. There were people who believed he was violent. By the way, this is the rest of the insurrection. I just fast forwarded it all the way so we can see a bunch of ants running around. Oh, they may have knocked over the velvet rope, and then there was a little smoke, which I presume was from when the cops got in. But yeah, there are people who believe that Adam Johnson got violent, and they could see the evidence and still not come to a different conclusion. And by the way, that evidence wasn't publicly available at the time. When they were telling us that this guy stole a Lectern, they who charged him knew what they had in their hands. They knew that they had rotunda CCTV footage. They knew it was a lie. Overcharge, coerce, extort, a plea on lesser charges, and then you could say, we got him. He admitted to it. He's guilty of theft because he took a Lectern and moved it 20 feet and then did a funny little posy pose, a speech in the middle of the rotunda. He was saying from day one he moved it just a few feet. I believe it was 20 feet. And I believe the statute might say that there's a certain distance after which it becomes theft, 20, 30 feet, whatever it is, or maybe 10, 15 meters. They had that footage. They had that evidence. They still overcharged him. They still put him in solitary for, I think it was 70 some odd days. He was in jail with a substantial amount in solitary. They still ran with the lie. The media says he stole. stole a lectern, and then people still refuse to believe that they were lied to. They have false memory syndrome, and they don't want to admit that they were gullible enough to have been duped by the lies of mainstream media, of the government that's there to protect them. And then you got Howard Stern out there repeating the bullshit lie that a police officer died, suggesting it was as a result of what happened on January 6th. And you get Joe Biden calling them insurrectionists, suggesting that Trump did nothing. They deplatformed him. They took down those 2 videos on Twitter that he put up, telling them to go home. We are the party of law and order. He said it in his speech beforehand. And then you have a bunch of agitators, arguably feds and not so arguably feds, the Ray Eppses of the world, directing people into the Capitol. That's where our problems lie. Oh my goodness.